School board meeting for January 10th, 2018, and we'll begin as we always do with the flag salute led by our student, Patrick Dinges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Patrick. We have to approve our agenda first, and then we can move into the PHS ASB report. So you're welcome to stand there for a while, but it's going to be just a second.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So next we need to approve tonight's agenda. Superintendent Maxwell, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to tonight's agenda.
That being the case, I will move that we approve the agenda as presented this evening.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve tonight's agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we move on to reports, correspondence, and program, beginning with our Pullman High School ASB report.
Hello, everyone. ASB is currently looking at the Constitution, and if and when we make updates to the Constitution, we will let you guys know. And ASB is also currently working on setting up some student-focused event as we near finals week. We're looking into hosting a cramming and cocoa event, wherein there will be hot chocolate and students will have the opportunity to work with teachers on
Great idea.
school work, scholarly endeavors as the time nears. And the sophomore class will be voting on Tolo themes this upcoming Friday. Tolo is what was formerly Sadie Hawkins. In the light of some new information, we have found that Sadie Hawkins is a derogatory term that does not fit with the undertones of female empowerment that we look for in this activity. And the word Tolo comes from the University of Washington, unfortunately, mortar board, which began as an all-women's honor society called the Tolo Club, which itself comes from the Chinook word for success and achievement. To help raise funds, the group held a dance where women asked men, much like they will do here at the school. Okay, and then since we last spoke, the leadership class visited Regions Pacific and participated in holiday activities with their residents, hosted a Polar Express pajama party in conjunction with ASB for the elementary schoolers, and put on an ugly sweater dance for the high school. Leadership class is now beginning their Shark Tank presentations, where it's their final, where they have to come up with an idea for improving the school, and they present it before a panel of judges, where they can, much like the show Shark Tank. So they have an idea and they come forward and they try and win the support of a panel of judges. We would love to have a big panel of judges. So if you are interested in sitting in on one or more presentations, please contact Aaron Willie for additional information regarding scheduling. This concludes the ASB report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay. Next we have board reports, and we'll begin down at the far end of the table with Director Weed.
Well, as Patrick mentioned, finals are coming up, so I'm sure everybody is madly studying, and I, of course, am cramming right here at the very last minute. We've got Martin Luther King Day, no school on Monday. We've got Collaboration Day on the 17th, so there's a lot of little vacay days coming up real quick for the schools, which is good. End of semester is January 25th, so that would be when finals all begin. Tons of different sports going on, and I think they're pretty much updated. If you check PHS Boosters on Facebook, they're there, and also online, I think they keep up pretty good too. So there's lots of different things happening, but that's just a highlight. So, but yeah, you can go into the website too on psd267.org, and then you'll check into the high school. You can find even more. There you go. And who knows when our listening tour is going to be with the, I think it's February 5th now?
It was
keeps changing.
rescheduled, yes, so Shannon
Yeah.
sent that out today for,
So,
that's
and-
specifically for Pullman High School, because
Right.
originally we scheduled it on finals.
Yeah, it's a little tough. And then also Bob and I attended the boosters meeting,
That's right,
and so I'm sure Bob will report on that,
yes.
since you wrote the report. Okay, thanks. That's it for the high school.
Okay, thank you, Director Weed. And just a point of clarification, the Pullman School website has changed.
What is it now?
It's pullmanschools.org.
Oh, Pullman Schools?
Yes.
Yeah.
The
So-
email
Which is a little
I
bit
don't
easier
know.
to remember for.
Yeah.
But they both will navigate to the same spot.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. And Director Roberts?
So not too much. I attended a PTA meeting for Jefferson Elementary earlier this week, and I was really glad to hear all the wonderful things they're doing. It's really great to see all the parents and teachers kind of working together to kind of work on projects. I'm looking forward to the listening tour tomorrow. That is at Franklin Elementary, is that correct? At 7:30, and so I'm just looking forward to talking to the teachers and spending some time with Bob. So otherwise, nothing to report.
All right, thank you. Director Everman?
No report this evening.
All right, and Director Tanner?
I also attended the Jefferson PTA meeting on Monday, as well as the Sunnyside PTA meeting on Tuesday. And it was great to see how many participants there were. There was about 25, not including Nathan and I at Jefferson's, and about 13 at Sunnyside. So it's nice to see parents and teachers getting out and being involved. Some points of interest that I learned: the spaghetti feed to help raise money for the 5th grade camp is going to be on February 8th. And tickets are on sale at all of the elementary schools. Also, there's a para and a mom, as I understand it, organizing a Zumbathon on January 20th to help. They're asking for donations for the Jefferson Food Pantry as entry. And then as of now, I think it's at the Pioneer Center. And then at Sunnyside, there's a talent show and family movie night on February 2nd. So lots of fun activities going on for those two schools. And I have a listening tour at Lincoln Middle School on January 23rd. So I'll be in touch with them in the next couple weeks.
All right, thank you. And I'll just report that I also participated in the listening tour. I was at Jefferson with Superintendent Maxwell bright and early Monday morning, and we spoke with, I believe, 13 members of the Jefferson staff, and it was pretty steady all morning long, so very productive. That concludes my report. Superintendent Maxwell.
Well, thank you, and many of those were on my list, so great for covering those, I appreciate it. Yeah, the listening tours are ongoing, and for members in the audience that may not know, that's an opportunity for a board member and myself to just spend about half a day at a school, and staff can come in and talk about what's going well, what they might have concerns about, and also offer suggestions. And so we received some really good comments and feedback. We also do that with the PTAs, PTOs, and booster clubs. So for the next month, I'll be going on all the listening tours. So and it's really been very positive, and staff really seem to enjoy that. So moving on, one of the things I just want to reference, I have several things, so and I'll pass this around if you have not seen it, our teaching and learning newsletter. So put on by the Birdie department, so I'll have that in here. So please feel free to take a look. Also, we have in the folder here the science pilot and adoption schedule, and so that'll be coming around in the superintendent's folder, so I'll pass that around as well. Anything you want to add to that, Roberta?
We are, we're in the process. It used to be that when we piloted materials, we got them for free. That is no longer the case.
Yeah.
And they want you to put some money towards it to start out with. So we're just been signing, taking care of those purchases this week. And so we'll have them in everyone's hands with the goal starting February 1st with our first, we're piloting at all grade levels 2 different materials. So starting with one, and then we'll go go to another. So it's exciting, very fun that we're finally getting to this point after all this study and work.
Can I ask a question about that? When you say you're piloting them, does that mean that every classroom tries both of the two? Or
No.
how do you structure
No.
who gets what?
Everyone that is part of the pilot, every participant pilots both.
Okay.
So teacher A and teacher B at each school will pilot both, and the reason is that if you only pilot one, you might love that one but have no idea what this other one would offer. So
Right.
that's how we have laid that out, and it's about 2 teachers per grade level at every school, 1 to 2. It depends
Okay.
on, yeah. So we have a lot of teachers looking at the materials, and then at middle school as well. And one of them that we're piloting at middle school is iQuest, and it is electronic, web-based.
Oh,
So
okay.
one that is web-based.
So is it every grade K through 8?
K-12 is actually
That's
the
piloting
materials
right now?
adoption, but high school will be different, and it is simply because we don't always have the same publisher for each set,
Yeah.
for each course. So and the need at high school is different. It's more around supplies and materials than it is around texts and other resources like that.
Okay. So it appears we'd be adopting a curriculum in May. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and this is the one we've been saving for and planning on for a number of years. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, every member of the committee is piloting as well as volunteers from each of the schools.
Yes.
So there's a combination. So. Great, thank you for adding that. Also, just a couple of things I also want to mention. The Elementary Attendance Boundary Adjustment Committee met last night for about 3.5 hours, and so we were looking at an initial springboard or a starting point for looking at elementary attendance adjustments. This is quite taking on something since Pullman really never have had attendance areas. So the committee is doing a fantastic job. The summary of the meeting is posted on our website. Those meetings are also open to the public if they wish to hang out and watch the process. It's very informative. We will have an opportunity for the community to receive some additional updates as well as a community forum. And the school board will actually be having a work session coming up with an opportunity to look at the work thus far on that process. So stay tuned. That committee is working very hard and doing a very nice job. And actually, Joe and Roberta are both co-chairs and have just done a phenomenal job at this point. And it's a lot of work. So. Also wanted to mention Kamiak Elementary School. So it is on schedule. We have steel in the air, starting to take a shape. So very exciting. We have some walls up in various heights on the gymnasium and cafeteria sections of the building. So far, the weather's been very good and positive for us this winter. So Kamiak is on schedule and should be complete by March 2019. So I'll actually send out information to the staff about that, just reaffirming that it is on schedule and included a couple pictures. We might have some new pictures tomorrow, depending on the weather. So we have our construction meeting. So stay tuned for an update, board members, Thursday or Friday. So. Lastly, I just want to mention Pullman 2040 Reveal. This is an initiative that's been taken on by the Pullman community. They're going to reveal their 22 priority projects and 5 themes, and that is February 13th, 5 to 8 p.m., and I believe that will be at the Encounters Ministry building. I didn't see it on the email today, but I believe that's where it will be. So the Pullman 2040 Reveal, I would really encourage anyone listening tonight or attending our meeting to attend. It's a lot of work that's gone into it, and these will kind of be the 22 priority projects, 5 themes. The Pullman School District has been very involved in this initiative, And so February 13th, 5 to 8 p.m. Encounter Ministries. So if you can make it, that would be great. So I'm sure that they'll videotape it as well.
Question about that, I don't know if you know, maybe Garen knows. Is 5 to 8, is it a presentation or is it an open house?
It's, again, a bit of both.
Okay. I mean, is it really a 3-hour?
It's going to be a full-on.
Okay,
Here it is, it's our rollout, basically.
okay.
Culmination of 2 years of work,
They're like 22 projects,
22 targets, that's correct.
partners, yeah.
Out of the 70, 60 something.
I'm just wondering, for people who get off at work at 5, can you show up at 5:40 and,
Yeah, it's going to, we're going to have, it's all going to be posted out and
okay,
and targets, and this is just our introduction to the community on what our targets are going to be.
And I've also been approached to see if Francis Benjamin and/or Garen could come to our next school board meeting and maybe give a little brief introduction to Pullman 2040 and maybe the school district's connection to that, so you have a little bit of background information. So we're working on scheduling that. So
I was really excited to see the focus on the skill center.
yes, it's in there.
See?
So
Yep.
see, you're going to do spoiler alert right there. So.
Oh, well, fine. But I was
Now it's
excited.
only 21.
Yeah, fine. But I was excited to see that yesterday.
Yeah, I think it'd be very helpful to receive a little bit of information
Yeah.
on that. So
I've done a lot of work on that.
yes, a lot of work. And I believe that concludes my report.
okay, thank you. And would you like to introduce Garen, or should I? Or?
Oh, sorry.
I don't know,
Sorry, Garen.
it's under me, but it's not.
No, it's under my report.
Okay.
So part of my report that'll be done by Garen is his annual tech update, so technology department update. And Garen, actually, for our new board members, was the first volunteer to put together an annual report and presented that last year. And so this will be his second go-through with his annual technology report.
We should also say he's been co-chairing the 2040.
Oh, yes, he has
Thing
been
too, so
co-chairing the 2040.
Give him some kudos on that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's an exciting time getting engaged in the community and trying to lead some of the opportunities, you know, marshaling a lot of the different folks that we have out here. Actually, can I borrow a mouse? I was going to bring a clicker, but then I thought, oh. No, disconnected here. So, one. Oh, I should have did. Hold on, sorry. Technical error. I can't see what I'm doing here.
Is this staged?
Yeah, all right. So this is the IT health check, and the objective here is to give a real quick 5-minute rundown. Before I roll for this, I wanted to point out something. First opportunity we've had for our district to engage in Zoom. And maybe some of you have engaged with Zoom as users, but one of our staff members called to see if they could schedule a Zoom meeting. Now, Zoom is a Skype type of replacement tool for distance meetings and so forth. Should be cutting down on state. I was involved in the state's network advisory committee that did the vetting for that entire program. It rolled out late last year, and the state's been using it as a replacement for their video conference system. But I had an opportunity to actually set it up. I wanted to remind everybody that we have the ability to establish, create, and schedule meetings that run this way. So if you have a meeting you want to invite people to out of our district or even across schools, let me know. Me and another staff member in our IT group can create these meetings at any time. So put that note there. If you need a Zoom type or a Skype type meeting, give us a call. Okay?
So did you find the Zoom was better than the Skype
Zoom is significant.
or GoToMeeting?
Because it's paid for by the state. It is, matter of fact, it's K-20, so universities can use it
Oh, wow.
right up on through the whole the whole state. It's an entire statewide.
And that's better than even, what, go to meeting, I guess,
Yeah,
is another one
it's
we use.
similar to
Okay, thanks.
All right, so we're going to cover the milestones. Accounts, equipment, projects, targets, staffing and expenditures, just like I did last year. We have very similar data. We've had a 98%, 99 almost percent uptime, which is fantastic. Another year of that. Our server and storage, which is a huge project over last summer. It was delayed in purchase. The school year started, so you can't change the hull of a boat while you're in the mid-ship journey. So I've been delayed on that, but the equipment is in and installed, and we are actually utilizing it now. That is the investment that we have made. The 3 servers, the storage array down below, the core fiber high-speed switching between the two to provide long-term high availability. So I've got redundancy on redundancy built into this thing. So the $90,000 upgrade is what you're looking at. We have up to 60 terabytes of storage now from our 13 terabytes. I got a fantastic opportunity to get a lot of storage. We've reduced our server count from 7 to 3, which is going to save us a lot of energy over time. And we have enough horsepower to migrate our 3D animation class and CAD drafting drawing to a virtual cloud, which means students will be able to access video editing, 3D animation, CAD programming from home. That means evening times and so like they could do their rendering and whatnot, and really class opportunity. We're starting that testing here now. So oddly enough, our accounts on the Windows domain side, server side, are up. I still don't know quite why, which is a bad thing to say for a sysadmin, but our Google accounts are down. Part of that is because of our email storage, the way we have to maintain and manage email. We have to keep accounts active, even though people have retired or left or so forth, teachers come and go. But one of the things that we did do is we included all of our coaches and subs, longer-term subs, and student teachers in accounting now, so everybody's getting an account, as it were. You mostly know this. The student numbers are way up. The equipment count is also way up. Between last year and this year, our one-to-one count was 0.66 to 1. We are now at 0.70, encroaching that one-to-one level of technology per student. So pretty interesting numbers. Our total device count, that's important from my perspective, of course, for staffing. We need to make sure that we have the right kind. But there are the solid numbers, Chromebooks for class, PC count and whatnot. And you guys have a copy of this in the document that I handed out, so you can review that at your leisure and try to make some understanding of the numbers. Typically, these numbers, I don't like that approach, but it works well. Next month, I will be purchasing yet another 5 Chrome carts, one for every school. For deployment, that'll take us yet again. We'll probably hit 0.78 or 76 in total count, one-to-one. 3/4 of the way there, and I would argue we are probably, I'll take that question here in a bit. So projects that I'm running forward this year. Last year was server renewal and upgrade. But we have a couple of targets that we can't ignore anymore. One of those is, of course, security, cyber and digital security. We're making headroads into that, developing policies behind that, like requirements for self-scanning and probing and penetration testing, and trying to fish our own staff, which we did last year. We will continue that same process forward. But we're making direct actions into out of these processes and putting them into policy. I have implemented a web-based self-help password reset system We are just at the cusp of rolling it out. It'll be required for every person that has an account to actually enroll in this the first time. That's where you would put your own personal email, your phone number, and so forth. And then you can use that tool just like you do with Google or something like that. You can use that tool to reset your password. Our IT staff will not have to be involved in that process. This will be fantastic for students. It'll be great for staff when they come back at the end of the summer and we spend 3,000 or 4,000 phone calls trying to get everybody updated. But in line with the security approach that we're taking on, this also has a multi-factor authentication process which we could implement. And that means every time you log in, you get a PIN code on your cell phone or something like that, or you get an email when your password has changed and you didn't change it. And so this authentication tool will increase our security x-fold. So I'm really happy about that. That's a critical piece for us moving forward. Of course, we're going to continue on with PC renewals, Chromebooks, and so forth. But I got to ask that question, are we ready for one-to-one? I think we are. I think it requires a deeper, longer conversation, possibly a task force to evaluate where we are and what that means for teachers, what that means for students, and so forth. I am also just finishing up rolling out a single sign-on solution so that all of our users, all of our staff, students will have one password that will get them into anything that the district utilizes, district's PCs, Chromebooks. We are also offering Office 365, so you'll be able to utilize the Office 365 tools as well. All of that will tie into a single account and make it so much easier. We are doing research right now into OwnCloud, which is a Dropbox replacement. It is technically complicated to build this thing and challenging for me and my staff. So I might have to outsource some resources to put this thing together, but I believe it's critical. Now the Dropbox approach, instead of using someone else's data store, it will use our data store, keep our data here in-house, and that makes me feel better and more secure. So on the staffing side, Mr. Dunlap here had asked me, okay, Darren, if you're going to be at the board meeting, do you still need me? And I went, no, I do need you here because I'm going to talk about you. I got to say that I am very fortunate. We are very fortunate as a district to have the staff that I have right now. They do a phenomenal job, and the numbers really show right now. You can take a look at this, and when you look at data analysis, it's really hard to establish or estimate how much labor you really need. The real kicker for me is what I call the hang time on jobs. It's how long a job sits in the queue before somebody addresses it. Last year, as we started getting to this level, our numbers were low. This open number, the green line, shows how many jobs we have on average in the queue every month. We are practically down to nil here. Another indicator is whenever you have a split between these lines, that means you've got more work coming in than you have labor going out to take care of them. And now we are actually more closely addressing those jobs as they come in. So we're really doing phenomenally well, and that's to do mostly to the staff that I have. They're in building and they're doing a phenomenal job. Most of the jobs now are not actually making it into the queue. They get addressed before they actually become a problem, and that means that teachers are able to do what they're supposed to be doing in classes. Sir?
Do you want to talk about the post-college intern program?
Yeah, if you'll note, I noted here, one of the projects that we've been trying to do here is to build a staff that can preload for coming into the district, and it's difficult to do so. So I got the idea that maybe I can hit a postgraduate student who would be interested in building a little bit of resume. So we created a position, no benefits, no vacation time, no sick time, but we had a student step up, is doing a phenomenal job. Now he's actually looking at possibly teaching computer science and splitting a position with the district, which actually makes it a lot easier for us to be able to fill both. if it works out that way. We got a position coming up, and so, but Cameron Haramoto's done a phenomenal job. He's a good kid, focused on helping our staff and students and doing a great job. So I'd like to see that program continue, is really what I'm saying there. All right, expenditures, real quick. Our large expenditure for the year was the server and the server deployment, of course, and you can see that in my little cheese wheel there. 45,000 for servers, 46,000 for the storage. This will pen out for us for 5 to 8 years. So we can expect it to ride this technology for a good many years. Significantly more than I spent last year. But as I said before, I have been reserving funds for this kind of program, so we didn't go in the red, as it were. We were able to cover the whole thing under tech levy expenses. And still not see a negative impact on class and technology. So you can see the layout there. 39% of the budget went to the server and storage upgrade. And the rest of it to, of course, the different components that we support every year. And that is my quick down and dirty.
Well done. Short and sweet.
Nice job, Karen.
Short and
Thank you.
sweet, I know,
Thank you,
right?
Karen.
So if you have any questions, I can field them.
No, you only have 5 technicians now. Oh, you did a good job then.
I talked to a school district, I won't say which one, they have 2.
Oh.
And they are 2,900 students. And he's asking, how? I'm lobbying for positions. I'm like, I have no clue how you can make it work the way you do without the staff. It's impossible.
Especially with the number of devices that we are wanting to have.
Yeah.
Well, this is not a question, but we did receive unsolicited positive feedback during the listening tour about how well those in-building assignments are working. The teachers seemed very, very happy with that.
Yeah, probably the most successful part of that is having the capacity to be able to have a staff member in building once a week, at least once a week. I think as we continue to move forward, the more devices out there, we're starting to see some attrition on our first carts, but I'm absolutely surprised and elated that the Chromebooks that we purchased 6 years ago, 7 years ago almost, are still, for the most part, in use. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes that 200 and I think 280 a piece we were spending on those. So worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So worth it. So we'll continue to run down that same path. I'm looking into rolling out the same kind of technology in a Windows side. We keep having some calls for we would like to have Windows, but maybe the Office 365 approach, it can run on the Chromebook, so that might answer our problem and just have a single platform with all of our data technology supported in one fell swoop.
Probably help the tech guys too.
Yeah, it's a shifting world is what it is. So, my only concern is data and data being posted out in places that we don't have any access to or control. So that's one of the things that Dr. McNamara and I have talked about is how can we provide control and flexibility. And so that's ultimately the key is security always comes at a price. Right? You can keep it really low, but you'll pay for it later. So convenience is what we have today. We want to, it'll be a little inconvenient, but we'll try to make it as less impactful as possible.
So you think this one cloud is better than
Own
the
cloud.
Dropbox? What is it?
Not
Own cloud.
not better in the fact that it's free because it's open source. So we're sitting on the shoulders of giants and trying to make ourselves look good, but it's difficult to implement and because every world is different. So I won't go technically, but we're struggling right now. We've been working on this for a couple of weeks, and it's not going as smoothly as I wanted it to. So we'll see if I've got a couple of resources I might pull to say, maybe we can make it work if we have a corporation or a vendor that would support it. So, but we do need something like Dropbox that we can replace.
So what's wrong with Dropbox?
its costs for extra storage.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's like, once you hit a gig, I think it's $15 a month per head.
99.
Huh?
99.
90, yeah. So there's their cost function. And that's always been my fear too, in other realms, is Google gives us free access to their tools. They won't still yet today will not guarantee that they're not harvesting our student data. And that's challenging. So if they're not, then we start forcing them to, and they can't, or if they are and we start forcing them to not, then they'll start to charge.
Sure.
And then we put all of our eggs in that one basket. So maybe I'll retire before it actually comes to a head, I don't know. But it's always good to look forward.
Okay.
So
Thanks, Karen.
you are welcome.
Thank you, Karen.
How often do you guys get, I mean, what's the frequency of phishing attacks or security concerns?
Phishing attacks, Dr. Maxwell emailed me a couple of weeks ago to send a wire, or facilitate a electronics wire from, so it happens quite frequently. Nothing that we technically can do to prevent phishing or stop it. Our weak link is, of course, people, and that's a security program that we're continuously renewing, and that's why we do our own phishing.
So when you successfully phish one of the district employees, do you then try to educate them on the?
Yeah, with a baseball bat or some kind of stoning. Yeah, no, it's not as critical as that. It's the key people that are concern. People that have access to lots of information, which would any teacher. They have all the student records, and of course, elevated up administrators and so forth. So those would be our first primary targets, and then secondary and tertiary targets to, it's not as bad if you gave away your account per se. You just flooded our email server and nobody can get email, but nobody lost money. Per se, but that's the cost of it. More importantly, is the security piece behind it that says if they're flooding the email, then other things can come in like viruses, and it's too much. They overwhelm us filters.
So do you have any major security concerns, or is it all pretty much normal?
I always have major security concerns, but we always work on that. That's what we do for servers and administration updates and so forth. And it's a balancing act. Keeping it up, but not interrupting services, but taking it down to update systems. Yeah, that's part of it. Part of what we're trying to do right now with the security program is work and collaborate with WSU. They have a fantastic security resource over there, and I'm working with Dennis Small at the state to try to develop articulate some language that allows us to be able to maybe fund into a larger aerial regional security resource.
Okay.
Like partly fund them for a couple thousand a year or something like that. And if every district around here does it, they could develop a team. They already have a fairly good team. We went, one of my staff and I, Alex, went over and sat through a couple of presentations that they did and worked with their security forces over there. Pretty good team they have. But you can already see the pressure because of the budget cuts at WSU to unfund part of what they had to fund because of their security breach. I want to avoid that, of course.
And there's no safes with hard drives full of data. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Another question? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Mouse?
You want that back?
Well, it's going to be pretty hard to hear, but
You need to be like that doll that stretched. What was that? My kids used to have that doll with the arms that stretched all over everywhere.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's kind of like clip texture.
Next, we move on to the visitors section. This part of the agenda is for anyone wishing to speak before the board, either as an individual or a member of a group. Visitors addressing the board will go to the microphone and state their name and address prior to presenting their information. The board will listen and may offer clarification, but will not discuss the topic at this time. The board may consider moving the topic presented to a future meeting date as a discussion item. Please keep your comments civil and respectful and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. And we do have one visitor signed in the sign-in sheet. So Rosalie Harms, will you please address the board?
Come on down.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I am Rosalie Harms. I live at 135 Northwest North Street. Okay, as I said, I am Rosalie Harms, and I am a proud member of the PSD number 267 Survivors Club after 34 years of teaching in the district. And I'm just so excited to hear all these things that are going on. It's like I would like to come back, but too late. So my address to you is, in light of the ongoing local and nationwide concerns surrounding sexual harassment, racism, immigration policies, and cultural diversity, I'm recommending that the board reinstate the District Diversity Committee. I know that the district is aware and committed to these issues, as evidenced by requiring faculty and staff to complete an online Safe Schools course at the beginning of each year. However, I believe it would be of greater value and importance to follow up on these issues through continued dialogue and staff development. In the past, staff development and training and orientation of every new staff member were an integral part of PSD's Diversity Committee. Issues and/or concerns from faculty, staff, and parents were addressed responsibly and professionally, which lent itself to avoiding greater problems of miscommunication or misunderstanding. The reinstatement of a district-wide diversity committee could further enhance the ongoing education for our students at all levels, K through 12. As I walked in today in the building, I saw a poster that's something to do with diversity. So I was very pleased to see that. Now, what happens to that, I'm not sure. But I appreciate your time. This is a very short thing for me, and consideration of this recommendation. And I'm always available for you if you want further discussion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosalie.
Thanks, Rosalie.
And Superintendent Maxwell, would you like to offer any clarification about, I don't know anything about the diversity committee or its status.
And I know one thing that we've been working on is we have an affirmative action report that we work on annually, and 2 years ago we did quite a bit of bringing in Jeff Guillory from WSU and did quite a bit of cultural competency type training, and we've been having some ongoing discussions about some other ways. We've been working with Paula Groves Price on some projects regarding diversity, in particular working with practicum students, student teachers, and our teachers in delivering lesson plans that were developed to address that. So we've been doing some initiatives. Again, we haven't had a formal committee active recently, but that's something I can go back and do a little bit of research on.
Okay.
But we have been doing ongoing activities and professional development.
Great.
So, but we haven't per se had a committee that's been meeting regularly.
Thank you for that clarification. And
You're welcome.
would any other members of the public care to address the board at this time?
Sure.
Oh, please.
Have your papers with me, I promise. I'm Beth Ficklin, 1040 Northwest Clifford Street. I would just like to ask again, please, can we have a parent advisory committee for special needs in the district? We have one for the boundary, and it's a super temporary issue. We don't have one for special needs. Can we please have that? Can we, kind of prioritize special needs a little bit more on the board level? Because, when our kids don't have the supports that we need, it really impacts learning for everybody in the classroom. So I would really like to see that change. So that's it. Thanks.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
And I said please a lot.
Yes. Yes. I heard that.
Thank you.
Okay. Would anyone else care to address the board? Okay. If not, we'll move on to our consent agenda. To expedite business at a board meeting, the board approves the use of a consent agenda, which includes items considered to be routine in nature. Any item which appears on the consent agenda may be removed from the consent agenda by a member of the board and voted on separately. The remaining items will be voted on by a single motion. Tonight's consent agenda consists of minutes, budget status report, warrants, overnight field trip requests, personnel report, professional and personal services contracts, ASB fundraisers, and a new ASB club. Did everyone notice a knitting club? So with that, I would entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda.
So moved.
I will second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No one is opposed. Okay. Next, we have our action items. Action items have been previously discussed by the board, and the board will now take action by motion. The first action item tonight is policy 1210, board officer rotation. Or is it procedure 1210, actually?
Yeah, actually, this is just a procedure.
Okay.
We had it in as a discussion item because we had to update it with
Okay, that's right.
the new election. So again, it's up here just to show the president, the vice president, members, and the order of rotation. So this was updated. So
Okay.
because it was a procedure, and we felt that that needed to be taken to you for.
I move to approve the document as presented.
Skillfully done, thank you. All right. It's been moved and seconded that we approve 1210P board officer rotation as presented. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is approved. Let's keep up this pace and we'll be out of here on time tonight. Policy 2020, curriculum development and adoption of instructional materials, presented by Assistant Superintendent Kramer.
Good evening. There have been no changes to the policy as presented at our last board meeting, which was a while back. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have related to it. If you remember, there was a name change. We've clearly identified particular instructional materials and then the related actions that are required for those materials to be utilized in our schools. But it also included the expectation that core instructional materials be available for public review. Again, there's the emphasis on professional judgment, just to make sure that folks clearly understand that we do recognize that they are professionals in charge of this, and we want them to use their best judgment. But also another piece to this is, as I shared with you last time, the recommended WASDA policy did not include video materials, and we have included that in ours.
I move approval of policy 2020, curriculum development and adoption of instructional materials.
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to policy 2020. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Those revisions to policy 2020 are approved. Now, 2021 library information and technology programs.
I just want to point on 2020. That's a real celebration. It's very important for the work that we do in our department, so thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Library instructional materials. This one was brought before the board in October, I believe, and then I gathered some feedback from Julie Udy, our district librarian, and have made only a few revisions, some clarity of language, just, again, the focus of this particular piece is the emphasizing for staff that we really need a balance of perspectives, but a balance. Okay, and so it can't be one perspective versus another. We need to have a balance of perspectives, and so it's important, and these materials will emphasize that. And then also there's a component related to the importance of our library information and technology program to support that high school and beyond plan. And we're seeing that woven into more and more things, which is a very healthy thing. It keeps it in the front of everyone, and really helps that to be a thoughtful process for our kids. And so those are the major changes to that particular policy.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm just curious how what does that look like for somebody who's working on their high school and beyond plan? How do they interact with the library?
So maybe there's a resource that a student needs related to it if they're going to do some particular career exploration related to their high school and beyond plan. That's how it ties back to how can we provide resources to kids so that that becomes a real live document, something that they really interact with and utilize. So it's more that helping kids connect to resources in order for that to be actualized. And oftentimes that happens without the support of the library, but the support of the library is an opportunity, should a student need one.
Because would the counseling center also be a logical?
The counseling, our classroom teachers, I mean, it's a wide variety of folks that would help to support that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or?
I will move that we approve.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to policy 2021 library information and technology programs. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those revisions are approved. Next, 2162, education of students with disabilities.
And this policy has not changed since I was here to speak to you. It is the removal, the policy includes the removal of some unnecessary language, and the procedure that was included for information in the last board packet had included specifics related to ADHD.
Was that changed, or the procedure?
Yeah, the procedure was changed, and it was presented in the last board packet.
Can't remember that far back.
I have my notes in front of me.
That's cheating.
It does feel like it was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
I move to approve the document as presented.
Second?
Or Jim can
All right, thank you. It's been moved and abundantly seconded that we approve changes to policy 2162. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those revisions are also approved. Turning the page to policy 2413, equivalency credit for career and technical education courses.
This policy was brought around some changes. No changes have been made since I spoke to you. There was a question about the record keeping and why that was included in the policy. And I knew there was a reason, but I couldn't get right to it at the meeting. The reason that it's included in the policy is because this policy is straightforward, and policies that are straightforward do not require a procedure. And there is not a procedure that accompanies this. So that's why it's included in the policy.
Good for you on the phone.
That's great.
That is my job,
I
Susan.
know. Sorry. So I will recommend that or I will move that we approve policy 2413 as revised.
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to policy 2413, equivalency credit for career and technical education courses. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
No one is opposed, so these revisions are also approved. Next, policy 3115, homeless students' rights and services.
And this policy has also not had any changes since we brought it, since I presented it to you in December. I do want you to recall, however, that there's a new section related to facilitating on-time grade level progression. So if a kiddo comes to us, does not have evidence that they've been in first grade, we still put them in first grade if that's where they say that child has been. So those, and then we have a responsibility to make sure that they continue to progress. And then there is the section that we included. My recommendation is that the board includes the component around informed consent for health care, not major health care, that's minor health care, but so that we don't have a barrier for a child getting the kind of support that they need.
On the informed consent piece, that's given by a not the liaison, but a healthcare professional as
Yeah.
far as
That's the nurse,
Okay.
probably in collaboration with the liaison and the principal and counselor. So there's a lot of folks that would be involved in that, but typically it would be the nurse that would be the one leading that work.
And if a student resists and doesn't provide tacit consent, I mean, even though they're not of age, would you still elect to do the procedure or the vision test or whatever?
That's a really great question. Generally, my experience would be, I would say no. If I was the building principal, I would not force a child to do that because we're talking about minor health care. Major, we're not going to be involved in. And so then I would go back and have a conversation with the student, with the parent, to figure out what it is that we can do to help that
Okay, so there
particular
won't be any
situation.
instances of,
No.
I know you're going to do this anyway, kind of. Okay, perfect. That's
No, you're going to have the shot anyway? No, we're not going to do that.
Take this vaccine. I think that would be
Right,
really
like,
well.
Touching that one.
you know, those days from when I was a kid and we just
Yeah.
stood in line in
For the
schools
school,
and
everybody
they
got
just
shot.
went down the line.
Walk through the door, they hit you both
Yeah.
sides, and you just keep
Yeah,
going.
those days are gone. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
I will move that we approve policy 3115 as revised.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to policy 3115, homeless students' rights and services. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those revisions are approved. Next, we have policy 3416, medication at school.
And
Can't remember.
I'll just briefly remind you that this allows for the possession and use of over-the-counter sunscreen products, which was kind of hard to believe that we couldn't do that to begin with, but we couldn't, and so that's what this policy speaks to.
Move to approve?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to policy 3416, medication at school. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Boy, I can hardly keep up here. And policy 3421, child abuse, neglect, and exploitation prevention.
So again, this one has not changed since I last presented it to you. Again, the emphasis is on reporting, on community education to the extent possible, staff training as required by law. We certainly exceed that expectation. And then again, there's a deletion of the sections related to law enforcement interviews because those are included in policy 3226. And just an update to this, more related to the procedure, we've had more conversations with our counselor group and are moving ahead with even reaching out to connect with DSHS, which is a really great thing. So this policy is getting us to connect with those partners that we work with in these situations. So that's been a really good thing because the counselors suggested some things that were really informed thinking that we wanted to pursue, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
So does this include all, like all physical altercations, like if one, student pushes another? I mean, at what point, who makes the decision to, at what point, report an incident of child abuse?
You have to examine the policy carefully, also listen to the child. And so there's the push, there's the, those kinds of
Like
things.
playground altercation
Right,
kind of
that's not abuse or neglect. Abuse or neglect is really about the long-term impact of that. Even unfortunately, as a building principal, I dealt with it a lot. And it could have been one incident that occurred perhaps at home, but it was a significant incident. And so then that would generate a report. But, yeah.
So like inflicting physical injury on a child doesn't mean, like, oh, there was a small altercation and
Right.
one got a cut or something. Like
Right.
it's more substantial.
Or when my boys, unfortunately, they fought like cats and dogs.
Yeah, that's kind of what I
And
was thinking.
there's that punch to the shoulder that still happens, but now the younger one punches them back, so whatever. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about ongoing, long-term impact.
So there is some discretion as far as dealing with minor
Yeah,
incidents.
and honestly, it's a conversation you have with the child is where all that information comes from.
Thank you. Move to approve the document.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to policy 3421, child abuse, neglect, and exploitation prevention. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, we have elect board president and vice president presented by Superintendent Maxwell.
Correct. So this was a discussion last time along with the rotation cycle. So board members serve a 2-year term as president or vice president. And in early 2017, Allison stepped up to the role of president to fill the remainder of Dean Kinzer's term as president. And according to our rotation schedule, Allison will start her regular term and serve as president for the years 2018-19. And Susan Weed will serve as vice president for the years 2018-2019.
Be still my heart.
Going on to that, 2020 to 2021, Susan Weed's scheduled to be president and Jim Everman is scheduled to be vice president.
That's if Susan Weed's still alive in 2020.
I was just thinking that. I remember as a child, we had an exercise in school where we visualized the year 2000, and it was incomprehensible.
And here you are, way past living it.
So it's an action item that you have to
All right.
motion and your colleagues have to approve.
Okay.
I
With
move
some,
approval.
I second.
all right. It's been moved and seconded that we elect Allison Munch-Rotolo as president and Susan Weed as vice president for 2018 and 2019. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So tempted.
An evil look does not count, so you either.
You can't oppose your own election, can you?
Wow. Wow.
All right, that is approved. And finally, we have our Director of Operations, Joe Thornton, to present Resolution 171806.
Well, it was about 5 years ago that, I can't remember, it was January or February, that we passed the bond. So
Yeah.
Really? We
February.
did all that in just 5 years?
here it is done. We need you to approve a resolution that you accept as complete. And part of this is a requirement tied to the state funding we received for the building. Any questions?
Before I move to approve the document, I just want to say they did an amazing job on the high school. It's an incredibly nice facility, so I definitely move to approve.
We get a lot of compliments. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think the number of detractors are pretty few and far between.
Compared to my high school, this place is a palace.
Yes.
So I'm just going to say that right now. But I move to approve the document.
And I did have a conversation with a staff member at the district office who's a graduate of Pullman High School, and she was saying she really missed the old Pullman High School. But when you dig into why she missed it, she misses it because as a student she loved all those nooks and crannies and places where you could hide and disappear and not be found.
You mean the things that made it very frustrating for the district?
Yes, so.
All of my kids have that same perspective.
Same with my
Their high school.
older child, yeah.
Yes, and I appreciate that.
Geez, my kids don't care. They like this, and it's good. It's a kind of a monument to Nat, but Garco did a fabulous job of putting it all together.
Yes, it was an excellent team.
Yeah. Nathan has moved. I will second that we approve Resolution 171806.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 171806, and I guess I'll just add at this point under further discussion, we could not have done it without you.
Well,
Yeah.
That's true.
Thank you. This is, I don't know if you make it to this building every day, but I'm sure every time you walk in the door, you probably still feel a certain sense of.
I am pleased with the outcome, and I'm especially pleased the way I see it being used.
Yeah.
And I especially see pleased by the excitement I see students have for all the different spaces. But I also walk in the building and see all the little tiny things that nobody else knows about, but I do. So, but that's fine. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right.
Joe, I had two concerns about the transportation, the bus route around the school, and then also student parking, student, staff, faculty parking. It always seems like the parking is limited.
Actually, parking back here is still quite open.
Okay.
We've recently put up some signs that designate certain areas back there for student parking. And I know that the high school administration is going to start funneling more students to park there. But what we don't have in the front parking lot is students parking illegally, double parking, parking in the crosswalk. So that's been fixed. The students who really want to get out of here quickly after school have figured out park on the street.
Okay.
You know, so there's plenty of parking.
Okay.
What I've been hearing with the bus loop is that it's working. Because now we have students waiting for the bus outside of that flow of student and parent traffic. And the buses get here early enough so they're able to navigate the front of the parking lot before it's congested. And they pull in, nose in, and it's just, it's a really, I've heard, the only complaint I've heard, and we're fixing this, is the number of students who are using this access road as a way to avoid the traffic in front. Because we need to really keep that open for service vehicles and for buses.
Okay.
So if you've been hearing some things, please relay those to me.
No, it's just when I visit the high school, it seems like it's a limitation. That's all I'm asking. Yeah, so. And I'm not here during the day to see the bus loop. So.
Yeah. I wish I had some videotape for you from the past when we had the buses in front with the parents and the pickup and the students leaving. And I heard this description the other day of something, and they said it was like a train wreck in a zoo next to a circus. That's what it was like. You know, so that's one of the things that the traffic engineer that was hired by NAC recommended, is that we put the student pickup in the back, and I think it's worked really well. It also allows those buses to quickly get out of here and onto Greyhound Way, as opposed to having to navigate the exit.
Good.
So
if they're waiting outside, do they have undercover or?
yeah, they can wait if the weather's inclement. They can wait inside. There's the northern entrance. They can wait inside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kudos on the project, Joe.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
I know you hard at it.
Well, again, team effort across the board. Starts with you guys.
But you need to have a coach somewhere along the line, and that would be you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, so.
Still gonna say yes or
no? It's been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 171806, certifying Pullman High School reconstruction and modernization project as complete. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that, Susan, did you pull, oh, perfect, nicely done. Okay, so we'll get that signed tonight. And next, we move on to our discussion items, beginning with board representatives to various committees. And that will be presented by Superintendent Maxwell.
Thank you. And this one has several attached documents, so hopefully you've had time to look at this. So the main positions I'd like to discuss, and I'll pull up a companion document here in a second, but the WIA representative, the legislative representative, and committee representative. So let me pull up a suggested list of committee appointments, and hopefully you've seen those. Whoops. This is just a document that shows the various district committees, so I'm going to hold that for a second. And I'm going to pull up the suggested committee appointments. So again, this is a discussion item. You could always move it to action if you so wish, but this is a time for you to have a discussion regarding the possible committee appointments. And also you have a list of district committees, and you can see we've suggested certain folks based on, I think, some interest that they've initiated. So
you're not recommending that there's a board member on every one of these committees, are you?
there does not have to be. These are some committees that if a board member wishes to be a member of, they are more than welcome. So
Where'd you put me?
Susan, you're at the top.
Fine.
So we have you as WASDA, Resolutions
Yeah.
Committee, Legislative Rep, District
Okay.
Technology Committee, and CTE Committee. So those were the suggested committees, and
That should be enough. Thank you.
Who suggested these? Did you do these?
I did most of them, and I thought that I suggested, there used to be I took policy off because we weren't using policy committee.
Right.
And you had been on technology committee, but I thought Nathan might be interested also in technology committee. So it looks right now we have an overlap there, so you guys could duke it out for that one.
You have way more than I do, so I can just take it if you'd like.
Oh, it's all yours, honey.
Okay.
There you go. It's all yours.
so if you have a preference or you
Yeah,
see
I mean,
something
this is
that's
just
not-
based on conversations that I'd heard. and-
So, yeah, I would probably want to find out a little bit more about the committees that I'm being suggested to put on before I'm willing to 100% commit.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I will probably just need to meet with some people.
And if you have this chart, and then you can ask questions,
Yeah.
either myself or Roberta, we can give you some more detailed information.
So I don't see any problems with it, but I definitely want to investigate a little bit further before I commit.
And that's why it's a discussion item,
Yeah.
so there's,
And the only thing that I really wanted to find out, Susan, if you would be willing to continue as our ledge rep, because
Oh,
that's
sure.
probably the most important thing we've got going on here.
Sure.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you.
And if there's an overrepresentation of committee assignments for one member, I'm shy, so I could take one of the other committee assignments.
You'd be willing to be appointed to something.
I would.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if
Well, I
that
was looking at Amanda's list there. I'm really interested in safety, so.
Well, and that's one of my questions, is that I've understood that you're interested in
Oh.
safety, so that might,
yeah.
I think that
Okay.
I
would,
think that
uh,
there
Well,
could
that
be
would-
some further.
Can you make
Switch
a
it.
note of
I'm
that?
taking notes, so.
Okay, yeah,
that would
if you're,
That would even things out. a
Yeah,
little bit.
I
Jim,
like
are
that a
you
lot.
interested on safety? And Nathan, you were interested in tech?
Yeah, I'm fine with technology and finance. I think that fits my
And
application.
Susan, you're
That's what I
okay with
thought.
not being on tech?
Oh, I'm just perfectly fine.
okay.
One less committee.
So if there
I'm
is-
still on a couple of other committees over in Olympia, so I've got
I know,
plenty.
every time I see your list, it's like this long.
Yeah, my
so
plate is full, thank you.
I'm just taking notes for our next meeting, so.
If there is no policy committee, can I recommend that on the executive summary, we remove policy committee from the paragraph?
Oh,
Did we confirm that there is, I mean, do we know what our plan for policy?
it's one of the things I'd like to talk with the board and see. what
Okay.
they- One of the reasons we have so many is because when we had a policy committee, it was very difficult to get through very many policies, and what happens is then we get backed up years and years, so it's something to discuss, so. So we have something I think is working, but if it's not working for you, we can discuss whether we want to have a policy committee or not.
Okay.
And so some of the committees that board members aren't represented on, I mean, could you notify the committee chair or just ask if they would like to have a board member on those committees? Or is it been expressed by them that they don't really need input? Or, I mean, has it just been opted out of the board in the past? Like for the highly capable committee, for instance, the affirmative action committee, for those that don't have board representatives,
Right.
can we at least just ask if they would like to have board representation on there? Or
Oh,
is
yeah,
that
we
possible?
can, we can ask, and if you're interested in affirmative action or one of those, please let us know, and we'll be happy to take a look at that. So, and part of these, we do give I'm looking over the list quickly. We usually either give an annual report or updates so that the board members are aware of what's occurring in minutes and such, so.
And I don't know, I mean, about our committee member, or community members, Rosalie Harms, her recommendation for the diversity committee. I don't know if that would be part of the affirmative action committee or something different. But can we explore what that would look like? I mean, could you maybe put together a document for us outlining whether you think that's a good idea or how it would work? Is that possible? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And just to clarify,
We're not finished yet. It's fine.
board members who do serve on many of these committees, your role would be basically as a liaison to the board.
Correct.
It's not that you can't participate, but it's more just to kind of facilitate that kind of communication, and then you can come back and say, oh, I heard that conversation, here's what it is. So.
My concern is I don't want to make it appear as though we're not uninterested in the activities of those committees, and so I just want to leave it open to their, I mean, if they would like, we would be happier to do that. So I just want to know what their opinions are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will get that a little bit redrafted and bring that back. Next, we have policy 1440, Board of Directors minutes.
Allison,
Yeah.
also in this was policy 1210, and it says we're supposed to, by roll call, elect a president.
That's true, yep. I
Oh,
was just gonna
sorry.
pull
So we
that up.
might want to
Yep.
do that.
Yep. It's down there in there, isn't it? Okay.
Yep.
So I was supposed to take a
A roll call.
Roll call vote.
call vote.
Yeah. Sorry, that's mine.
Everything's invalidated now. It's over.
So that means, okay.
Is there a...
Oh, here she is madly looking. I think you could just do, have someone nominate, I will nominate you as president.
And then you do a roll call.
Yeah.
And then you call each director by name.
So the previous motion and second...
That is just approving that that's the way,
Right,
the slate
that just
kind of.
Oh,
but you still have to-
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I nominate Allison as the president for the next 2 years, 18-19, and Susan Weed as the vice chair.
Second.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded.
Roll call vote.
And then you need to do a roll call
Director
vote.
Reed.
So Susan Weed votes yes.
Okay. Director Roberts.
Yes, for both.
Director Everman.
Yes.
Director Tanner.
Yes.
And I, Director Montrotolo, also vote yes.
Okay.
So,
Got it?
okay, did we get our Ts crossed?
And
It's only for
Susan?
1 year, because you have to do this every year. So for this is for 2018.
Okay.
Yep.
According to the policy.
He did a combined
Oh, he did
That's
combine.
okay.
motion for both
Yeah.
of us.
All right.
So,
You did
You
it.
you don't want to push your luck with me, so take me on to the other one.
Well done.
okay.
Okay.
Thank
Now,
you.
Sorry.
Going back to the committees, who was our WIAA representative?
I have been.
Oh, you have been, okay,
Uh-huh.
okay.
And if somebody would like to do this, they're more than welcome. At this point, it took years to successfully get myself added to the email list, but I am now on the email list, and
I don't want to disrupt that.
basically you get an email, I would say about once a week, and it discusses rule changes to all the various WIAA contest activities. Here's what we do to standardize bats, or here's a new prohibited move in wrestling, or whatever it might be. So if you happen to be a person, I would say especially with an interest in sports, this would be a good thing to be tracking. For me, I just kind of skim it because it doesn't mean that much to me, but just FYI.
If you get overwhelmed,
It's not
let me know.
overwhelming.
Let me know.
I understand that they have meetings that,
They do.
like your athletic director and various people would attend
Yes.
for your area, but, so in theory, the school board, the school district's WIAA rep could attend something like that. Again, I couldn't contribute to any kind of a discussion about that, so
I don't think Carl even went to the league meetings.
I don't,
So,
I don't
and he's the
know.
one that was really involved in sports.
yeah.
So,
From the tenor of the discussions over the years, I can see that officiating is getting harder and harder to find officials
Yeah.
for high school athletic contests of all kinds.
Extremely difficult.
And that could actually become an issue for how athletics works if you just can't find officials.
But I think there was a movement within WIAA to have more competitive functions that may not require field sports.
Yeah.
So I think it's moving to include some academic competitive challenges.
Yeah, and then at the state and national level, the other big issues are, well, especially in our state, like if you go to the WASDA meetings, there's usually a hot topic session, and it's, they discuss, when it comes to state championships, why do so many private schools win state championships? Are they at an advantage? That's a huge hot topic.
Yeah.
And another one is transgender athletes is another hot topic. So there are some interesting issues in there to learn about and discuss. So.
I'd be willing to do that as well, if you would like. So
Okay.
I'm just gonna leave that option.
Okay, all right.
You've got two backup.
That's great. And if you guys find that you're reading the High School Today magazine and you find the material engaging, then yeah, we could.
Let you know.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. So next discussion item 1440 Board of Directors minutes.
Yep. Let me get caught up here. Okay. So again, let me preference the next ones are mostly going to be 1000s, which is school board director policies. And so with the election, I thought it was a good time to go back and review the 1000s because typically we spend most of our time in the 2000s, 3000s, 4000s. Many of these, if you notice, were somewhat outdated. And so some of these will be some minor changes. Some may be a little more in-depth. So my goal is to complete the 1000, so we have that off the table, and I think it would also provide our new board members with just some additional information as well as a refresher for our experienced board members. So I appreciate your patience in advance. So this policy 1440 has been adjusted to bring it in line with the WASDA sample policy, and legal references were also aligned with the WASDA sample policy. And so this regards minutes of the school board. So the big change is the addition here, except as otherwise provided by law, permanent minutes will not be destroyed until approved for destruction by the appropriate district personnel. Permanent minutes should be preserved in a manner that protects it from loss. And so our minutes are cataloged and stored in accordance also with the state retention policy. So there's a state records retention.
Is that a 7-year?
Minutes archival? I thought they were archival, like permanent.
These are archival.
Yeah.
We send those, yeah. So so these are, preserved. We can even go back to 1800s and we have records. You can't read them, but they're there. So
Some of them still read cursive.
yeah, even cursive, it's pretty hard. Any questions on this one? That was the main thing that we added there because it was missing. So, and we also updated the legal references. So,
And so I mean, in the statement for the minutes, should you just come right out and define them as not to be destroyed, period, because they're archival, or?
We don't have, I guess we didn't put it in there because we go by the record retention schedule, and if it said this is an archival item that's held forever.
So it's just kind of assumed and
It's assumed.
scheduled, and
Yeah.
it just won't be, okay.
So,
Okay.
any other questions? All right,
Let's keep them moving.
that was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So I'll
Move to
keep it-
approve
No.
options. Oh, no.
I'll keep them moving. We got a lot coming up, so, all right. Absence of a board member, that's the next one, so let me bring that one up.
So you don't think that in search of vitamin D is an adequate excuse to be
Well,
excused?
Sorry,
If
sorry.
the doctor
not,
can give
so-
you a note.
Oh,
that
there,
says
maybe
you
that would be it.
Need
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. This one was updated with WASA. It talks about, legitimate reasons here to be absent: illness, active or training military duty, or those authorized by a resolution of the board. So there may be something else, and if vitamin D shots are one of those things. It also adds on that if you're doing military service, you could appoint someone to serve during that term. Most military deployments now are at least a minimum of 1 year. So if someone was in the reserve on the board, it's been updated to align with the RCWs, and also this was in Policy News and in the 2016 July issue.
But this is 4 consecutive unexcused absences, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as far as illness, you were joking about the doctor's note requirement, or is that a?
No.
No,
It's a joke.
that was because,
Sure, I mean, it's like-
no, I go down to the desert frequently, with a place down there, need my vitamin D is why
Gotcha.
so.
Any questions about absence policy? And this is for, yes, 4 consecutive.
D
so.
deficiency is a legitimate illness.
Yeah, I know.
Bob, just a question.
Yes.
We've become much more proactive in terms of workshops.
Yes. Mhm.
So we have a workshop just about every other week now as well, so
Once a month.
Once a month.
once a month. So what about that type of attendance?
That doesn't count.
Well, it doesn't mention specifically in this one work sessions, but I think the expectation would be that we attend those as much as we can.
Okay, as much as we can.
Would you mind adding that to the document then, as far as stipulating the difference between work sessions and board meetings? I mean, just to say that board members will attend them as often as possible, the expectation being that you go to all of them.
Is that something the board is interested in?
I think it would help to clarify, because I think we are expected to attend the workshops.
Yeah, and if that expectation is solid, then we should add it to the.
Well, you could just take out the word regular, because a work session is a board meeting.
That is true, it's an open public meeting. So it's-
Yeah. I don't know if that,
So would consecutive include work groups then? I mean, as far as 4 consecutive absences, does that include work groups?
I think you're better off just leaving it the way it is, and then,
yeah, if you leave it the way
we're
it is,
small
it's
enough.
more tolerant, essentially, of absences.
Okay.
So,
and I think that, it's a small enough group that the expectation has been stated.
Well, and
So
there's
we
a
all know.
difference between this meeting where we're following, Robert's Rules of Orders, formal meeting, as opposed to the work session where it's more of just a time to discuss. I mean, I think that we all treat them the same, but they're not,
No, because we certainly don't conduct,
they're
specific
a little bit different.
district business at a work session.
That's right.
It's more of
It's
a
a little bit
learning
more flexible.
if we
experience.
didn't have a quorum at a work session, it would not be the end of the world. But if we don't have a quorum sometime for a regular board meeting, we
Can't
cannot
have a
conduct
meeting.
business. So there is a real difference.
I mean, I think that if there starts to become an issue where somebody starts deciding that a work session isn't important and isn't coming, we could maybe come back and revisit if we need to put this in the policy, but as of now, I'm not sure that it's necessary.
I like
That's
y'all's
my
explanations.
And historically, it has not been an issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Good discussion.
All right.
We'll move on to 1621, District Organizational Chart.
Thank you. So this one was quite outdated, and so again, I went ahead and updated it. I think it's kind of funny that we have an action item on an organizational chart. So, but be that as it may.
So are the yellow parts the updated parts?
Just a second here, and not necessarily, because anything that's in blue is updated. And the reason being is I was trying to work off of the original and did not have time to go ahead and redo a new organizational chart. So anything that you see in blue is different from the previous old organizational chart.
Okay, the blue didn't show up.
Yeah,
on
it doesn't,
Oh, it didn't show
on these,
up,
it
sorry.
doesn't.
So let me go
but-
over that for you, so you know that we have a fiscal manager rather than a business manager, which used to be the same job as an executive director of operations. That used to be all one position. That is different. Custodial coordinator, we do not have a custodial coordinator. We used to have a custodial coordinator. That job was combined with the executive director of operations. Curriculum and assessment specialist and instructional programs assistant, those were different titles than previously. So we have a curriculum and assessment coordinator, a curriculum and assessment specialist, and a instructional programs assistant. Also, CTE, it was head vocational. Well, we don't call it voc ed anymore. It's called career and technical education, or CTE. So that position is actually part of Chris Franklin, who's also oversees CTE. He's also activities and athletics director as well as an assistant principal. So he does basically three different jobs. And then I'll try to move this around here a little bit. And then the last one, which is really hard to see, I'll try to zoom in a little bit. So I'll read it off of here. So we have an administrative, it said assistant, that's really our communications director, and personnel. So we have an HR manager, and personnel used to be part of our fiscal / custodial / operations maintenance position, which was quite outdated and old. So my plans would be to clean this up, so it's just to use a new program for an organizational chart, so we can get rid of the yellows and the blues and everything else. So it's a little clearer.
Do the yellows mean anything?
They don't mean anything other than that's what
It looks
whoever
pretty.
designed it put the yellows in, and I couldn't get them out.
Splash of color.
So,
A random assortment. Yeah.
so it was really random. So I was like, wow, okay. So anyway, this is the organizational chart. But one of my projects will be to present a cleaner, updated version of what the organization.
So
looks
that
like.
would be in the January 24th packet. It would be.
That's my
by
goal.
then. Okay. Okay.
So basically,
If
you
it's
just,
not in there, I'll get it in the next one.
you just changed the position names to what we currently have. as
Mostly,
opposed
yeah.
to
And some of
what
these
it used to
positions
be.
no longer existed. Some of them had changed titles. So this was actually quite old. So
There were no positions eliminated or created, though.
this round for this one, we haven't created any positions since I think last year or the year before.
Yeah.
So we have I didn't put the TOSAs on here, teachers on special assignment, because that's year to year. Sometimes we have them, sometimes we don't. But I tried to update it, and I'll clean this up so it looks a lot nicer.
Yeah, so for Nathan and Amanda, we're not approving approving this document doesn't mean we're approving any hires or any
Right.
I was just
actual
wondering if
or-
anybody had been reclassified or titles changed or
This is just to
No.
update a document so that it matches with.
the
Yeah.
current.
Yes.
This is taking an old document and just updating it to make sure it reflects the current organizational structure.
Perfect, thank you for the
So
clarification.
not creating anything, not deleting anything, it's just giving you an update, so.
Okay,
So I need to clean that one up and
Yeah.
I'll work on that.
thank you. Next, we have two policies marked for deletion, 1622 and 1623.
Correct. So, oops, let me do this one. So 1622, there we go. So 1622, all of this is found in 1620. So we had two policies, basically 1622, and I believe the other one was 1623. I'll take a look and make sure, but 1622, all of this is in 1620. So what I try to do is delete ones that we don't have and combine them with the WASDA where they should be.
1620 is a new policy though, correct?
It's the WASDA policy that reflects what we have. Sometimes you're going to find that we may have numbered policies that WASDA does not have, or WASDA has renumbered their policies, and then we update ours to reflect the WASDA number.
Can I move to, and I don't know if we would do this at this meeting or next meeting, but to add 1620 to the discussion items?
1622.
It's currently in the informational items, and I'd like to move to discussion either this meeting or next meeting.
Do you mean the procedure?
Yes.
Yeah, you can do whatever.
1622P.
Yeah.
Superintendent board relations, but 1620P, sorry, as I was, board superintendent relationship.
And for those who might know more about parliamentary, under discussion, does that even require a motion? That's just so we'll
just
just,
So at any time, I can move an informational item to a discussion item and vice versa.
Well, it would be for the next meeting, I think.
That's what I was expecting. So
Yeah.
I'd just like to add 1620P to the next meeting's discussion items, is what I was moving.
1620.
yeah. And that also would fall under the context of board planning, so at any time, you could contact me or the superintendent,
Yep.
and we can put stuff on the agenda for the
Okay.
next meeting.
Yep.
Yeah. You wouldn't have to save something like that for a
The
meeting.
board meeting session.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the future, I'll.
And
Yeah.
you could also, if you can contact either Alice or myself, if you have a question on a procedure, sometimes it's as simple as finding out correct information. You don't have to wait till the next board meeting as well, so.
Yeah.
Did you want 1620, the policy or the procedure? Or
The
both?
1620P.
Which is the procedure?
Which is probably
Procedure.
the procedure, yes, absolutely.
Is the P represent a procedure
Correct.
Yes.
rather than
You're right.
a policy?
Correct. Yeah, so if there's no letter, it's a policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, the 1622 that you're talking about deleting, that exact wording is actually in 1620?
The exact wording or the exact concepts are in there, yes.
Okay.
And I believe in this case it's the exact wording, but I can pull it up and I can.
I mean, I can look at it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand exactly what you're,
What we're trying to do is we had this information split into two different policies and procedures, whereas 1620 combines both of those into one policy and procedure.
And it's supported by a WASDA 1620 counterpart?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I ask that at the next meeting, we get a copy of the WASDA 1620?
Yeah,
Because
we
I
can-
was told by Allison I wouldn't have access because it's password protected, so I would just like,
The WASDA sample policies are password
oh, gotcha.
protected,
So would
but
I be able to access the 1620 from the WASDA
it can
site?
be just
Oh,
put.
sure, it's just, it's on the website.
have-
All of our policies
Yeah,
are on
no, I-
we have
on
a
the district
1620,
website.
and
He wants
it's
to see
on the
the WASDA.
website.
I want
Oh.
to see the WASDA sample that it was
Oh.
clipped from. Because, I mean, it says so in the document that it was supported by a WASDA policy similar to that. I just wanted to see that policy.
Okay.
So you can't,
Checking
but
to
you can
see.
sign, can't you sign up on the WASDA website to be a member or something and
Yeah.
get it that
Yeah.
way?
Yeah,
I
Okay.
can't, I'm trying to remember.
yeah.
But
I'll
I
try
can have that, I can
this-
have that set. That's
Perfect.
easy.
Thank you very much.
Can I be on that too, please?
Mhm. You want the policy and the procedure? Let's
Yeah, I
do
think
both.
that'd be appropriate,
Yeah.
just to kind of see. Because I had some questions about the particular policy for us, but I wanted to see WASDA's version of it as well, just to kind of.
Sure.
Because that may answer all my questions.
Yeah, I can send those.
Thank you.
So let's see, I made a note, so I'll get those. Any questions on this deletion? Okay.
Okay, so
So-
we looked at 2 for deletion, so now we're on 1731, board member expenses.
Okay. And then I gotta jump over here. So again, for this one, this is updated to align with WASDA sample policy. This was back in 2015. The sentence, "Such expenses for conferences may be paid in advance," was inserted per the WASDA sample policy. Last sentence regarding gratuities is deleted. This is not district practice. Cross-reference policy 6213 was also inserted, so let me jump there so you can see that. Oops. This one.
As far as gratuities on costs of meals, et cetera, don't we just use per diem for meals when traveling rather than
Correct.
actual receipts?
I was wondering about that too.
So it wouldn't, I mean, it makes sense to cross it out because we don't do
Yeah.
that anyways, as far as I understood.
Yeah, so, so such expenses for conferences may be paid, and then the last was, because we don't do gratuities, so. If we do, it's personally, so.
There's personal gratuity.
Well, for WASDA night out,
No, I'm just.
I just paid the gratuity, so,
But usually that's the part of the cost of the meal.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Right.
I mean, I'm not objecting, I'm just thinking usually a gratuity is is expected. We're not in France,
Yeah,
so.
well, sometimes it
kinda
is
weird.
included, but that has not, that's been our district policy has not been to reimburse for gratuities, so. But
But,
it's up for discussion, so that's what.
but as Amanda, just point of clarification with Diane,
do?
is it, we're just per diem, right?
That's what I was
So,
going to just say.
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Your per diem part of that is gratuities included.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was just commenting on it as
No,
that
it
it's,
totally makes sense.
it's,
That's why it behooves you to eat at McDonald's.
Come out ahead.
no gratuity. Yeah.
Well, you could.
Yeah.
Just steal food at the WASDA conference and put it in your pocket and.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, 1733, board member
Board
compensation.
member compensation, so.
This shows where we earn the big bucks.
Could be the year for the
Yeah,
raise.
we didn't open this one up.
Okay.
Oh, it addresses.
I'll run back up to that one. Remind me, please. So,
We should have received our last one, did we?
No, it takes forever to get
I was kind of
paid.
wondering if it was like paper snafu or if it just took.
No, it just takes forever.
so board meeting compensation, sorry, just running around here, so. Make sure I'm the right one. So, again, changes to the area, again, first sentence, if authorized by board resolution at a regular scheduled meeting. This was one I didn't even know. but each board member may receive compensation. So I had Shannon do some investigation. We could not find a board resolution in past documents regarding this, but it referenced a board resolutions at a regular scheduled meeting. So in order to receive compensation of $50 per day for a portion thereafter. So she and I discussed putting together a resolution, and or I have not ever seen that, but it was in the policy, so we're going to do a little more research on that. But just be aware that we'll research that, and we'll either keep it or we'll not keep it. But by law as a policy, it is say a board resolution is required.
But it looks like we could be like every other elected official and vote ourselves a raise. It would just be for the next term that we're
Yeah, and then the rest of it is since the board of
elected in.
directors, since you're municipal officers who fix their own compensation, they may not increase their compensation during the current terms.
But we could be like everybody else. Woohoo!
So I am noticing the red highlight. Is that because it is currently paid out on a 2-month basis? Or because I recall Shannon saying something about that.
The payments is on monthly, though, right?
No, it's every 2 months.
Or 2
Yeah,
months.
you guys submit them every 2 months.
2 months, yeah.
Yeah, or Shannon collects them every 2 months.
So that'll occur monthly after this change?
No, this
No.
will stay 2 months.
It says, okay, will be made on a monthly basis, doesn't mean paid out on a monthly
Right.
basis.
Right,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
So this resolution,
Mhm.
there would be a resolution that would apply to a year, or it would only apply to a month, or it would, I don't,
I would say it would be a year resolution, or I would even see if we can make it a 5-year resolution that you would revisit, or whatever term
Okay.
you want. I just found it fascinating because I'd never
yeah.
have seen this one till you get digging into these and you see, oh, there's supposed to be a resolution, so.
There's also something about, there was eventually, or originally somewhere, about board member travel. Now, it wouldn't apply to, us going half a block or something, but for Dean, who had to drive several miles he never applied for it, but there's supposed to be, somewhere I saw that there was a deal where you can get compensated for your travel to meetings, but I don't remember where I saw it.
I haven't seen that one. We do travel, if you have to go to Spokane stuff.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I haven't seen anything.
There was, shoot, I don't remember where I saw it. It was a couple of years ago, and it didn't affect me, so it's gone. The hard drive is full, so I'm trying to erase as much as possible. So
I think it was, because I don't see the resolution or draft of one, so I'll check with Shannon, but that's one I did want to point out to you that
Sure.
I'm still not 100% on, but I'll
Okay.
double check with that one.
It
so.
seems like we might want to delay approving this revision until we.
Oh, yeah, I
At
wouldn't
that,
suggest,
okay.
if this ends up in the action next month and we don't have a clear, I'm going to table it and we'll move
Okay.
it. So,
Okay. Very good.
because I want to find out too the correct answer, so.
And I would think that when you approve the resolution, you wouldn't have to approve it annually. It's just a done.
A one
It
time.
might be a one-time
Yeah.
done deal.
Oh, okay.
And that's
You may
why
have
I
to go
said,
back when they approved paying the board members. I mean, I don't know how far back that was, but
Oh.
that's how far back we could possibly go.
I mean, this could be
So
back.
1990 was when this
yeah,
policy
that's the
was
original
adopted.
policy.
So, yeah,
And
interesting.
Shannon was looking for it, and again, usually like the resolutions we did for the high school, it's a one resolution, one time. So
Yeah.
that's a good point, Diane. So I'll find out a little bit more about it, but we may have to do just a resolution to say, because if an auditor came and they said, well, show
Yeah.
us your resolution, we
Yep.
should be able to find the resolution and say, here it is, so.
And
Although
then we would reference it in
Right,
here. Okay.
that's
very
what I
good.
would recommend.
Yeah, so you could find it again.
Because I could find it again and say,
All right, that sounds good.
okay.
Policy 1805, open government trainings.
Yes, so so this is a new WASDA sample policy, so 1805. It's classified as essential, and for Amanda and Nathan, when it says essential, it means this is what we have to have. It's not, it's not an option. This is one we have to have. Typically, when it's essential, it also has mostly law language. So there's typically very little you can change. So,
So this came straight out of the WASDA?
yeah, this came straight. Most of these you will see will have come straight out of WASDA. Occasionally, there might be some little grammatical wordsmithing that we'll do, but typically it's usually the exact language from WASDA.
And an example of the subtle wordsmithing is this policy begins with "the board recognizes the value
Yes.
of," and for our district, it would say the Pullman School District Board of Directors, and that's about the extent of the changes we would make.
And this one, you can see it's all underlined, so that's new. This is a new WASDA policy, so you can see this is taken straight out. And so just remind you again that the training that's required is the Open Public Meeting Act, the Public Records Act, the Public Records Retention within 90 days of taking oath of office, and with a refresher training thereafter every 4 years.
So this is all the stuff we took care of when we were at the
Yes.
conference?
Yeah, you guys
Yep.
are good.
You are all complete for the next 4 years.
And if, in the case of somebody getting reelected for a new term and needing to do the refresher, do you guys help the board director remember that they need to do that?
Yeah, Shannon keeps track,
Okay.
and so Shannon keeps a list, and so in the past, what we've done is we've actually done this at a work session, and so we've pulled it up on the internet and sat down and completed it, and then submit it for our certificates.
So could I suggest that we change the beginning of it
This
to the
one?
Pullman School District
I
Board
knew
of
you were going to
Directors?
catch that, because I just
And
saw
then,
it too.
although it seems that we know the procedure is that Shannon's keeping track of these dates, do we need anything more than that for a procedure, or does WASDA have a procedure for this, of keeping track of?
I don't think they have a procedure for this
Okay.
particular one, but I will double check to
Okay.
see. Sometimes WASDA will have the policy, but not the procedure.
Because
so.
I wouldn't rely on my own memory ever for
Right.
this.
Do I need to
Well-
start making a note for 4 years from now? Just in
We
case?
could do something similar to where you saw the board rotation.
Yes,
And
that would be
so,
really good.
We could do something really easy.
That kind of a procedure would
And
be
just
really
have
ideal.
this
Yeah,
as a procedure, where it's really not, it's just a tracking mechanism.
yeah, yeah,
That's cool.
exactly. That would be great.
I always loved that all the elected officials in the state are required to do this, except for the legislators who passed the law requiring everybody else to do the,
Susan, very good on your legislative history there.
yeah, I just love this stuff.
Okay,
Okay.
policy 1732, board member insurance.
All right, so let me, before we do that, I'm going to run up so we stay compliant with one of the deleted ones I did not open up and reference, so I'm going to go back and do that real quick before we go on. 1623, so. 'cause
Oh,
we
to
were-
show the public that
Yes,
we're,
mhm.
okay.
So this was another delete, and so I'm just going to pull it up, so we're on record.
There wasn't a lot there when I pulled it up.
Yeah, there's 2 paragraphs, and so, again, this information is probably verbatim in 1623, so, or 1620, excuse me,
yeah.
1620. So again, it talks about social interaction and visits to school, and so that's one that we're suggesting we delete and take that information and combine it in 1620. Okay,
All right,
sorry for that
so
trip.
now
down there.
back to 1732.
So, board member insurance, so.
I'm doing my best to.
We're going through this as quickly as we can, so. All right, board members insurance, so this, okay, let me open it up. So this one's a really difficult one. So as stated, the policy was updated per WASDA sample policy by inserting the clarifying phrase. Cross-reference was updated to align with current district practice.
Okay.
So there you go. One word and one cross-reference. So.
Nice.
Okay.
And 1820, evaluation of the board.
1820, evaluation of the board. So here we go. Pull that one up. So this policy is updated to align with WASDA sample policy. This was back in 2012. So again, with this one, it talks about the responsibility of the conclusion of each year. Pullman School District Board of Directors will assess its own performance in terms of generally accepted principles of a successful board operations related to the annual goals and objectives and the Washington School Board standards. So the self-assessment will include the following functions: A, B, C, D, and E. The results of the self-assessment will be used in setting goals for the subsequent year.
So basically, the change is, it used to be every other year, and now it's every year?
Correct.
And I think we specifically had adopted every other
We
year.
did. Mm-hmm.
Despite the WASDA sample policy saying every year, because when you do these on a regular basis.
Repetitive, which is
Yeah, I mean.
You feel like you're doing them constantly.
Yeah, and so it's something, I think there would be benefit in, since you guys are new, going through that process. It really does link very much to the WASDA standards, which are empirically demonstrated to correlate with school district success. Like, they're great standards, and they're a great way for you to learn more about the standards by seeing the questions that they ask. We did just do a board self-evaluation last February, so if you wanted to jump in, and that's another thing, is we have never done them at the conclusion of the year. We've been doing them in early spring always. I'm not sure where we're getting that.
11 months ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we could do another one as kind of a starting spot for you joining the board, and then we could, at that point, go to the 2-year adoption, or we could wait a year.
How do you assess 1 month on the board?
Yeah, that would be my question. I mean, you
don't really have a lot of.
Yeah. So if we stuck with our regular schedule, then it would not be at the conclusion of the year. The next one would be in February of 2019.
Well, that gives them a year to get
Right.
what the board's supposed to, figure out what the board's supposed to do. It took me about a year to figure out everything. It's hard to evaluate if you don't understand.
I've done great
all
so
the. Yeah, I'm sure you can evaluate me, but we won't go there. Yeah.
Been to every meeting?
Yeah. Fine. I can't even say that, but it just. If you're trying to do a true evaluation, you kind of have to have something with which to evaluate and base your.
So I guess what I'm asking, and especially for you, the new board members, is would that feel comfortable to just merge yourself into the pattern that we've been maintaining, which, unlike what it says here, is actually spring of odd-numbered years?
Honestly, that would give us time enough to establish some sort of record,
Okay.
to judge on, so I'm okay with that.
So could we write it in?
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm okay with that too. And then, I mean, if we want to revisit in a year,
Mm-hmm.
if we want to start doing it every year, I don't feel like I'm on top of things enough to be able to make that
Yeah.
choice now. And next February sounds like perfect timing
Okay,
for
great.
us to start.
And I know
an
WASDA really
evaluation
wants to
process.
encourage us to do these every year, but I feel that the fatigue associated with doing them every year is counterproductive. So,
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
especially if things seem to be going reasonably
Yeah.
well. When things aren't going well, I think
okay,
more evaluation is probably.
Time to
Could
get
be.
introspective.
yeah.
You want to keep it at every even year, or do you want it on a every 2-year cycle?
It's every 2 years, so the next one would be
Yeah.
February 19.
Allison, that's not a criteria for the Board of Distinction, though, or does it add brownie points to the Board of Distinction?
Very small amount.
Okay,
I mean, it would look bad if you just didn't self-evaluate ever.
Right.
But if we just explain that this is our cycle and this is when we do them.
Do you want to do this in spring, or do you want to do it at the conclusion of the school year?
I thought about that actually, and I was thinking the conclusion of the school year is when we're looking at our district's performance data. So to me, it made sense to do the board self-evaluation in the dead of winter when we don't have district performance data
Yeah,
to study.
February might be a.
It's a
easier
slow time, yeah.
Okay.
And you can even do it from the desert.
Yeah, we do it at the end of the year. I'd have to do it from the boat.
Well, either way, as long as you got internet.
There you go.
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
Gotta have my playtime.
I will make the changes and bring that back for
Okay.
your consideration next week. or next
Oh,
time.
and I see, so we had,
We got
that one has a
1820.
procedure.
So while we are talking about the 1,000 policies and evaluations, I think we need to look at the policy, oh Lord love it, where did I put it? The policy that had 1810. Because that is the superintendent evaluation policy, and in that procedure, they have the questions and things that we're planning to use, that are recommended to use. So I think we need to look at how we evaluate again, and if we're not using that procedure, then we shouldn't have it in there as the procedure.
Okay,
And I think we had that one coming up in the next round,
Oh, goody,
so.
okay.
thanks.
You're excited about the policy.
Oh, yeah, sure, I love policy.
You kind of do, though.
I do.
You grumble, but you
I do.
actually do.
I do. Some of it boggles what mind I have left, but
Okay, and,
We have
Now-
1820, which is the self-board assessment,
so this
board
is the
self-assessment procedure.
procedure.
So you should have that in your
it's there.
packet. And so these were, oops, excuse me, sorry about that. So these were the,
What's odd about that is that there seems to be like a mismatch between the policy and the procedure, but, I mean, the WASDA policy is pretty much advocating that you
Use their-
participate in the WASDA
mhm.
online policy tool, or the self-assessment tool. The procedure is not really saying much about how we do this. Like the procedure, if it were really describing what we do, it would say that we use the WASDA board self-assessment tool and,
And that's something we could take another look at.
okay.
If you like, hey, this is the one that we worked on, based off of what they're. It's kind of interesting because these both came from that same time period of 2012.
It's really odd.
So if you have suggestions, I'd be happy to take a look at either reformatting this or taking another look at it.
Yeah, I don't know. It just struck me as seeming like a large overstatement of what the WASDA standards are. maybe not that helpful, but not inaccurate, I suppose, so.
Is there a better self-assessment tool for the board?
I don't think so.
I'm sure there are companies that will sell you something. The WASDA doesn't, we don't get charged by WASDA
No.
to take their self-assessment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's the benefit of following WASDA, unless we want to go out to a consulting firm and get self-assessed.
The other thing is WASDA has all the data, so you can compare your assessments year to year.
With other districts as well, right?
I don't know about other districts, but it can compare our district over time,
Yeah,
which
so
is
I think
really
If
helpful.
we're going to stay with it, we have to
Okay.
stay with it.
Yeah. Okay. Policy 3432, emergencies. Oh,
Mr.
Joe.
Thornton.
Never something very.
Yeah.
Policy 34.
Oh, yeah, the tsunami
The
drills.
changes I'm bringing forward are recommended by WASDA in policy 3432. What's refreshing is, unlike so much in our lives where the state is dictating exactly what they do, this is actually a situation where they're giving us more flexibility. The requirement, let me read something here from the ESD concerning these changes. The requirements for drills have recently been changed. House Bill 1279 recognizes that due to geographic locations, schools have unique safety challenges and clarifies that school principals and administrators have the responsibility to assess the threats and hazards most likely to impact their schools. School principals and administrators have greater flexibility, surprising, in determining the specific number and type of drills to conduct. Previously, they would dictate you need so many drills every year and you need so many of these, so many of these, so many of these. The big change is you just need one drill a month while school's in session, and you get to determine what those drills are going to be.
One a month?
One per month while school is in session. So if you were to do summer school, you'd have to do them throughout the summer as well.
That is what they're making it be, or is that what they're taking it?
No, that's what they're making it be. So it used to be that you had to do, I think it was 3 evacuation drills, quote unquote, fire drills per year, 1 lockdown, 1 shelter in place, and 1 of another type. Here's what would often happen. Schools would do a whole, and I'm living this from experience. Schools would do a whole bunch in the fall.
Yeah.
And then you'd forget about them in the winter, and then you'd kind of panic at the end and go, oh, darn it, I haven't done my drills, and you do a whole bunch at the end. So what I like about this is it says, you know what, you need to do 1 month. It needs to be drip, drip, drip of those drills. Yeah. But I also like it's also giving you that local district, that local school, the flexibility to do what they need to do. What doesn't do us any good to do a tsunami drill in Pullman, okay? But we might just determine that evacuation drills, especially, at a place like the high school, where you do have the aquatic center nearby that has chlorine gas, we might, well, actually, we wouldn't evacuate if that was the case. We'd do a shelter in place. So those types of things.
Interesting.
Are there any safety-related drills, based on school shootings or school
Those are called lockdown drills, and each school has a specific. And we've really boiled it down to say we're going to do 2 types of responses. We're either going to evacuate the building. That'd be a fire drill, earthquake, something like that. So an evacuation or a secure building. We really try to move away from calling it lockdown, active shooter, something like that. Yeah. Okay. However, there's some recommendations from law enforcement, which is the older the group, the less you do those drills with students. Not to be, to go dark and morbid, but it's really very likely that in a high school shooting, that shooter's going to be a high school student. So do you want that shooter to know exactly what the activity is going to be? No. Experience is that in a crisis situation, students will listen to the adult. So if the adult says, we are doing this, the students will respond respond to that. And the recent protocol with an active shooter is that in order, you're going to flee, you're going to hide, and you're going to fight. So in contrast to immediately post-Columbine, which was all lock down your classroom, now we're asking staff members to make a decision based on the preponderance of evidence for that situation, whether you're going to flee the building, whether you are going, and that would make sense in this building, for example, if there was an announcement and they knew there was an active shooter in the office, for the people in the north wing to get out of the wing and go down to the soccer fields and keep going. So your first response would be to flee the building, second response would be to hide in the building, third response would be to fight. But again, we don't practice that with high school students because, you know, and with middle schoolers, you don't, or excuse me, with elementary students, you don't tell them it's a active shooter. You just practice the drill. We're going to secure the building.
And do we provide training to teachers for teaching them how to do the
Yes.
3 steps? I mean, as
Yep.
far as when to escalate and when
Yep,
to do
absolutely, yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Thank you.
So no diving under the desks that we used to do for when the big bomb was going to come?
Oh,
Duck and cover.
the time we've all been waiting for has come.
Oh,
6000s policies, beginning with 60/20 system of funds and accounts, presented by our fiscal manager, Diane Hodge.
So this policy was updated to align with the WASDA policy. It hasn't been updated since April of 2006. There's minor formatting changes, word changes, pretty much shall to will. Identifies more clearly what the capital projects fund contains, a broader range of spendable items allowable in capital projects, and how remaining capital projects voted bonds can be spent after the project's complete. And we kind of do that in our bond resolutions now on what we can do with that. Explains the debt service fund process for investment earnings and non-voted bonds. ASB funds cannot be used to support or oppose any political candidate or ballot, not that we've ever even come close to doing that. And added a separate category for bank accounts. They basically just put the title in. It was pretty much there, but it didn't have a title.
All right, any questions about those? I thought that was one of the more
Okay.
well-written policies I've ever seen, actually.
They cleaned it up really well
Yeah.
and simplified it.
Okay, 6100, revenues from local, state, and federal sources.
Same thing, just aligning with WASDA policy, minor word changes, shall to will. Changes to reflect the new engrossed House Bill 2242 with the levies, condenses the state grant process, which was really nice, and adds the federal impact funds, which is now a requirement.
Any questions from the board? I did have one question that we're still researching a little bit about the district's annual descriptive guide, which is referenced in here as if it is a concrete item.
And do you want me to explain the conversation we had today?
Yeah.
So the descriptive guide is basically our annual notifications. I don't know if we just need to change the title, but, and there's a reference to records retention, that it has to go to the Washington archivist every 6 years. So, you know, we have it on our website under annual notifications, but it is, I think, supposed to be titled descriptive guide. That's about all I know.
And that's what I'm also researching, that descriptive guide. We can't find it anywhere,
No.
even in other districts' stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it was an oversight by WASDA or it truly is supposed to be called a descriptive guide and then was called an annual.
Have we tried actually asking WASDA?
I tried today, but I didn't get through, so I'll try
Okay.
again.
Yeah. But, you know, we did a search to see what other school districts are doing for the descriptive guide, and I think we found, Bob, 2 school districts that even referenced it.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I have a question. This actually doesn't have anything to do with the policy, but actually the wording, and I don't know if this matters or not, but for federal impact funds, Indian, is that
that's,
like the language that they use?
It is. That's
Okay.
exactly how WASDA had it. And that's how, when the legislators proposed it, that was their wording.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're not moving to Native American quite yet?
No, that's exactly how WASDA
Okay.
put it. So I just did exactly what
Sure.
they had in there.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Sure. Okay. I actually thought the same thing.
You don't see that too frequently
You
these
don't.
days.
6213, reimbursement for travel expenses.
Yes. So again, so the phrase actual expenses or reimbursement in lieu of actual expenses for was inserted per WASDA's policy. Policy number's been changed to 6213 per WASDA's policy organization, and the name changed to reimbursement for travel expenses per WASDA's policy. So this is getting, again, here's one where we need to align it with WASDA's numbering system. Pretty minor changes, but it's a cleanup.
Any questions? And we have come to item number Q, PHS course offering approval.
Q, yes. Rarely do we get this far in the alphabet, so, but tonight be the exception. Okay. You can open that.
Yeah.
Bob? Thank you.
Hold on a second, I'm having it. Hold on, let's see. Okay. There it is.
I would ask that you could enlarge it just a bit, even though I have new eyes.
No, you just went to the eye doctor.
I just went to the eye doctor yesterday. I can actually see.
Is that big enough? Whoop.
Yes, it's fine, thank you. So, this is back to a historical, was a historical point of which I was not a part of, okay? January 14th, 2015. The board approved that career choices would be a requirement for seniors at Pullman High School.
No, that's not what they approved.
And that was what I read. So we can talk about that. I'll finish and then you can fill me in on what you believe to be accurate. And so with the approval of that course and a long-term plan, because there was also some moving of some other courses, as I understand it, Joe, moving health, there were a whole lot of other things that were moved around. In addition to that, we require a senior project at Pullman High School that is no longer required by the state, but we have maintained that as a graduation requirement. Embedded within career choices is the senior project opportunity to follow the deadlines, to complete that. In addition to that content in career choices is also financial literacy. Financial literacy, did I say that correct? Yes. Financial literacy as a requirement by the state. We are required to provide instruction in financial literacy. Also, a need that was identified was the need for students to be able to complete a more better prepared resume, letter writing, some job skills, those kinds of things to be embedded within this course. So that was approved January 14th, 2015. I'm before you tonight because, as I understood it, the course would be a requirement for seniors, and so therefore, as a result of that, we would need to advertise for a teacher for the course. And generally, I'll bring course revision or course catalog requests to you later in the year, because this is way early for that. But in order to post the position and find viable candidates, that's why I'm bringing it to you. And now, I'm sure Allison is going to explain what she believes happened on January 14th, 2015.
Well, I think that we should have the record in here so that we can,
Yeah, and I was just trying to see if we had put.
yeah.
most of
I went
that.
back and I looked at it.
Yeah, and so what I saw is that the board approved it as a course offering at that time, and it said in there that the plan would be that it would be implemented as an elective in 2015-16,
Yes.
and then would become, the plan was to have it be a requirement in 2018-19. Well, when it was never implemented as an elective,
Right.
I don't know, I mean,
Well, and I would love to be able to speak to that, but because
no, I know it's not you, you're,
No.
yeah, I know I actually am free of this, except that we have been planning, knowing, working with high school staff, they've been like, okay, Roberta, this course is going to be required at this point, so we're going to jump in. Granted, there has not been a transition into this course
no.
over a period of
I don't think we can
time.
make it a requirement because it would be, if it's a senior, it's a graduation requirement, right?
That's the way I understood it.
Well, then we can't make it a requirement until next year's incoming freshmen come in.
Right.
We
Yeah,
can't
because you
require-
can't change somebody's
Not once
graduation.
You're not going to get any argument from
When
me.
when they enter high school, I mean, they have to know what's required of them to graduate, so traditionally, unless the stupid, our amazing legislature comes in with something, they're the only ones that
You could
can
offer
change
it
it.
as an elective and then determine.
Which
if we
I would
wanna
be in
make-
favor of
if we
doing.
I
wanna-
think it's an elective,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
it'd be
An
Yeah.
elective for
Take it in for-
seniors only? What's your, it is intended
junior,
from the
senior
beginning
course.
was for it to be a senior course because of that
The
senior
senior
project
project.
component in there.
Yeah.
So if you'd like, we could offer it as an elective for seniors next year, opposite of,
We're still here.
No, I want to jump in on this.
Oh, okay, good.
It was an elective last year,
It was?
when Diana Garner was teaching.
Oh,
It was
true.
not an elective
Yes,
this year.
there you go. Thank you,
And
Doug.
why would it be 18-19? Because that's the 4-year span you need for it to become a requirement for graduation.
Okay.
So, there you go.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
Solves it, I don't really care.
Thanks for dashing down here. Appreciate that. Thank you.
That was my out of breath.
Somebody was listening.
My question on it, though, is
Wow.
the name of the, we do have a listener. Yeah. The name of it is Career Choices. I don't think that name adequately implies what's being taught.
We've had this discussion as well.
Yes. Yeah, Bob knows that that is something that I'm quite passionate about, that I would prefer that it not be career choices.
Sorry, Bob.
I'm not held to it either. I'm not passionate about the title
Career
either.
success or something.
Yeah,
That makes more
exactly.
sense,
Or
where-
exactly.
I mean, it's not a choice. You have to learn those things if you're going to.
Thank you. Thank you for making me, because I've known career choices in other systems to be a course that kids take as freshmen, so that they begin that process of looking at what their opportunities are.
it
The
doesn't-
design of this course is very different than
Yeah.
that.
It doesn't really
So
just
thank you for
adequately
that.
describe the.
Appreciate that. Thank
So
you.
we did
So
offer
are you
it,
going to
so
massage this for the
Okay.
next?
You'll
meeting?
fix it.
That I didn't.
I'd like to massage it. I don't know that I'll have it back for the
So
next
you
meeting,
want
but I will bring it back in the next couple of meetings,
Yeah, I think-
Well, I didn't
because of the
realize-
posting
Because you
need.
want the posting.
Yeah.
So if we keep it as an elective, do you have to hire, I mean, is
Yeah.
the posting?
We'll have to
requirement
hire staff for it. But like Doug said, it has been a 4-year process.
So is this action needed then? If it has already been offered?
Yeah, it has been offered,
As an elective.
but
Yeah.
it didn't appear, it didn't appear in last
It's-
year's,
Yeah, it didn't appear. I don't
last
think it
year's
matters.
course catalog.
I don't think
Yeah.
it matters if it didn't appear, but if we taught it and it wasn't in the course, then we just need to get it into the course catalog.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we can't make it a requirement until it's a requirement for an incoming freshman class.
I don't believe that that was what Doug was communicating to
No,
us.
I don't think so either, but
Yeah.
I don't think that you can make it a requirement for, say, a junior graduating next year.
And let me go back and have some conversations with the high school counseling staff, because they'll be able to
Yeah.
help me navigate that better too, yeah.
We might have to go back and look at the course catalogs and what was
Yeah,
put in there.
requirements, I think, have to be communicated when you're entering
Yeah.
the school as a freshman.
And Doug would probably know, he's going to walk through the door really quick here, how many students were enrolled in that as an elective.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and perhaps it has been clearly communicated and included, and if that's the case,
We'll
that'll
just
be a
need to
different
find that.
Well,
conversation.
you,
we come
you
back
have
to.
that chart we have of courses and the requirements and that sort of thing, and it's, you know, almost different for every single year of graduation.
And that's the
so-
problem, because we have if you look at ours now, it's a 3-year change, because all the freshmen have different
Yeah.
requirements for graduation. The
So-
incoming freshmen over the past 3
Yeah,
years.
so how about if I go back and do significant research related to this, and then come back? I knew that there were going to be lots of questions related to it, so I wasn't expecting that it was going to be, we're just moving it forward. So I knew that we
Perfect.
needed to do some more work on it, so thank you.
But I do think it's a great course, and I think it's necessary for
Yes.
everybody to have. I want to
Absolutely.
send them out there into the big bad world, at least knowing something.
Yeah.
What you
And
do when you
we've
bounce a
had- I was
check
telling
or-
Allison, we've had some of our PHS alumni coming back and saying, boy, I wish I would have known more about credit card usage and,
Yeah.
some of those basic financial things that young adults seem to be struggling with.
And that part is the state requirement, so it's a
Yes,
class,
it's
specific class. for
Financial
that.
literacy.
right.
So could the information that's in the packet also discuss some of that, like the history of the state requirement and how the financial literacy learning standards are incorporated, not just in senior year, but how they might look across K-12?
Do they still teach, I remember learning all about coins and
Yeah, I
making
just don't know, I
change,
can't
and do they
imagine
still
that
do that?
financial literacy is only something you
Probably
learn
doesn't
your
work in the new
senior year.
math, though,
I don't know.
when you're doing all those stupid, bizarre, stupid math things.
I mean, it's often found as a part of home economics as well. I mean, when you do the.
Yeah, but home ec is not required anymore.
So, and
Yeah, it's
that has
not.
been one of our conversations, because we do offer independent living, or Phil here referred to as I Live. And within that course, there's some of this same content. See, so this has been, but that's not, I mean, we don't have every student takes independent living anymore, so.
Yeah.
Okay, we have made it through our discussion items.
Congrats.
Yeah, there are information items, and we do have an executive session tonight for the purpose of superintendent evaluation. So if there are no objections, the board will recess into an executive session. How long would the board like to discuss the superintendent?
About 5-6 minutes
I'm gonna-
max.
20 minutes.
20 minutes
I still need
sounds
to sign
good.
these, but
Okay,
I'll take these home.
so that'll start at 9 o'clock. It's currently
let's send
8:57.
this. I'm gonna have to meet with you, so.